Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Well Beyond the Arc. I'm Manoli,
And I'm Montana.
and you've joined us for episode 19, titled, well, I forgot what we're titled. Uh, Rumors, High Schoolers, and Top Dogs. A great show for you guys, and to think that we're a month away from the NBA season tipping off. Montana, I'm like a little kid on Christmas, so I feel Christmas coming. It's coming. Are you feeling it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just counting down the days. I have a countdown on my phone that is going as we speak. And so I'm ready. I'm ready to roll. I think it's going to be one of the more exciting seasons we've had, top to bottom. There's been a lot of exciting things that have happened. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm counting the days down.
Yeah, so am I. NBA Christmas coming close. I know I said about the playoffs, but we haven't had NBA basketball for so long. Man, it's coming. It's finally coming. Well, thanks everyone for joining us as always. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Yankee and Brit Sports Group. What are you waiting for? You see, not just our Well Beyond the Arc NBA podcast, but a number of great podcasts on the sports group, including MMA podcasts. Jay and Maddie, you got a bunch of football podcasts happening. I'm here with the NFL season underway, so be sure to check them all out. But Montana, let's hop right into it. Since we've been away, and again, we are only doing the bi-weekly podcast here in the off season, but Eurobasket, which I've been harping on a lot, is finally concluded. Not exactly the Final Four in Eurobasket I was expecting, and with NBA all first teamers, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, and the reigning two-time MVP Nikola Jokic among the pack. Their teams, Greece, Slovenia, and Serbia, were not part of the Final Four. Instead, it was Spain taking home its seventh Eurobasket title, beating France by 20 some points, Germany getting third place, and Poland finishing fourth. Montana, how surprised are you by that outcome, and not that the fact that the NBA first teamers didn't even factor in the Final Four?
When we last discussed this, I mean, I know we both said that we thought these teams were going to go all the way, and some of these, heavy hitter NBA stars were going to go head to head, and that's just not how it happened. And I think that to me, I like that we get to see other players, other teams, and we get to see some unfamiliar faces, and you never know. There's a lot of players that come from overseas and end up playing in the NBA. So you might be seeing some future NBA stars that you've never seen before, or just some stars from other countries. So honestly, as much as I would have liked to see some of those NBA stars go head to head, I think we got another exciting element in there since they were not going head to head. We have other people headlining it, which I thought was kind of cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple guys, NBA guys, Bo Cruz, if you've seen the new Adam Sandler Netflix movie, also known as Juancho Hernan Gomez, got tournament MVPs, hitting 7 threes in the final, 27-point performance. Got some other NBA players in there too. Rudy Gobert, who we've talked about many times this offseason, was leading France as the runner-up, silver medalist in the Eurobasket 2022. But disappointing for me. I had Greece going all the way, but I thought for sure we'd see Luka, Giannis, and the Joker battling it out. But still, Eurobasket's in the books, and we're heading into training camp soon, and season's right around the corner. So hopefully those guys get their rest. Well, it wouldn't be an off-season show. And before I even get to the next point, for everyone that's joining, thanks again for joining. Be sure to leave your comments. Throw in your comments, your thoughts on our topics here. If we missed something that you didn't think on, if we give our lists, please feel free to add in the comments. Or if you want to play a game of who can crack us up better, by all means, let's hit it in those comments. It wouldn't be an NBA offseason show if we weren't talking about rumors. And there's a couple big ones that came out in the last week or two since our last show. One of them, Montana, is that the NBA is rumored to be announcing the expansion to 2 cities here in a couple of weeks during I think it's a Clippers game. And the 2 cities rumored to be getting NBA teams are none other than Seattle and Las Vegas. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm hoping the rumors are true, Montana, but when I tell you that the NBA is expanding and to those 2 cities, what's your first reaction?
I think both of those cities deserve a team. I think it's 2 cities that make the most sense. I can't sit here and tell you. I mean, there are definitely other cities, but I can't sit here and tell you other cities that make more sense to me at the moment. I think that those are the cities that make the most sense, and I think that they will have the most success. And I think the NBA is really trying to keep their expansion successful. We have never really seen an unsuccessful expansion. We've seen some teams not be successful, but when you look at like the Orlando Magic, they were successful pretty quickly. They had one season where they didn't do anything that big, but then within the next few years they were making the finals. So I think that I believe I'm correct. They made or conference finals. I don't know. Either way, they made
They made the finals in the first few years of existence.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I wasn't forgetting the wrong thing, but no. So they had success. They want their expansion teams to also be successful. And when you think about teams that might have the most success and might draw those players to them, those bigger stars, those are the cities that I think would draw those players to them. So I think that it makes the most sense on all ends. And I think that it would be super exciting to see basketball come back and also be in a new area. So to me, those cities make the most sense. And, my Raiders are out in Vegas. So that'll just give me another team to latch onto maybe. So that's also exciting.
There you go. Well, think of it this way, Montana. Maybe, soon after, if the rumors are true, you might be able to make a weekend out of going to Vegas, which just stop right there. A weekend in Vegas, great. But you could possibly see an NBA game in Las Vegas and then catch a Raiders home game in the same weekend. Think about that.
That
I
would
mean,
be crazy.
yeah,
That's the experience. That's the ultimate experience as a sports fan, being able to do that in that
yeah,
environment as well. So a lot of these teams adding it's great to see that because you will have fans that will have that as a goal and will do that. And that just attracts, more people to the cities. I do think that this makes the most sense. And I hope that it happens. I hope that these two teams, places get these teams. I hope that they're not just gassing it up and then they give us one or potentially none. I don't think that will happen, but sometimes, there will be teams announced. There will be a team, but I hope that these rumors are true because to me they make the most sense, and I feel like to the NBA they make the most sense. So that's the hope.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, Jay's ready to meet you in Vegas. I'm not that
Let's
far
go.
behind him.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, I mean, look, Vegas makes sense, right? I'll get to Seattle in a minute. And I've been on the bring the NBA to Seattle, back to Seattle bandwagon for a while now. But think about it. I remember a time when most people remember a time where having professional sports teams in Vegas was seen as taboo. And the NHL of all leagues were the first ones to get a hockey team in Las Vegas, and they were pretty successful. They made the Stanley Cup final in their first year. Then you got an MLS is out there as well. I mean, you get the Raiders are out there, been out there for what is this, the year 2 or 3 that the Raiders are out there. Who knows? The Oakland A's might be moving to Vegas too. So it only makes sense that you're getting all of the major sports teams into Las Vegas. Las Vegas is going to be a sports destination if it hasn't been already, not just for gambling, but to actually, watch a game. And the scenario can unfold just like I said. Watch a Raiders game and an NBA game in the same weekend, or same with hockey, or whoever's in town. The NBA has made its summer league home Las Vegas. I mean, all the NBA stars go out there in Vegas in the summertime. So bring a smoke. I think LeBron could be the guy that buys the Vegas team. Even if Vegas comes up, there might be a temporary owner in place, or LeBron might go to buy him out, in my opinion. I could totally see that happening. But yeah, I think it makes all the sense. Vegas, baby, Vegas, of course. Now, Seattle, I've been clamoring for them to get an NBA team, and so are their fans. And bring back the Supersonics. I hope for the fans of Seattle that they get the Sonics back. They had their team taken away from them right underneath their noses. Not that it was the fans' fault, but Clay Bennett, the guy who bought the Thunder,
Had their team taken away.
said that they weren't going to be moving or anything like that. No, he moved them to Oklahoma City and called them something called the Thunder of all things. You know, and it's not that Seattle couldn't draw fans. Seattle fills up a football stadium for MLS soccer in America. Key Arena back in the day used to be loud. I mean, Seattle fans get loud for any sport. Haven't gotten too loud for the Mariners, but hey, the Mariners might be finally breaking their postseason drought. So, man, I hope this is true. More so for the fans of Seattle, but Vegas is the other team because you have to have an even number of teams. 30 NBA teams right now, expanded to 32. You might have to move a couple teams from the West to the East to make this work because that's 2 Western teams that would be coming in. But man, I hope it happens. But the next question is, assuming that these rumors are true, it's only fitting that the Seattle team is the Supersonics, and they bring that team back like the NFL did with the Cleveland Browns after they moved out in '95 and became the Ravens. But what do you call a basketball team in Las Vegas? Like, what would the team name be?
See, honestly, I don't even know. I feel like it's a tricky place to come up with like a new name. Like, the Raiders moved there, it's still the Raiders, but I feel like coming up with a new name is tricky. I think I don't even know. That's a really good question.
Las Vegas Rollers, Las Vegas. Well, you can't call them showgirls; they're men. Las Vegas, well, strippers. That probably won't go well. I don't think Adam Silver will let that happen. Gosh, yeah, my mind's deep in the gutter. I mean, I have no idea what you would call a Las Vegas team. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what they come up with. But either way, I think we're both on the same page here. We're fingers crossed that the NBA expands to Seattle and Vegas, and I don't think it's going to be watering down. It'll water down the league a little bit in the beginning, but it's only going to grow the league, the brand, and basketball together. So
it's huge. Expansion and growing is important, and the NBA has not seen expansion. But most leagues aren't constantly expanding. It's not how that works. But I would like to see an NBA expansion happen. And to those cities especially, because Seattle deserves it, should have never lost it. And Vegas, I think, could be the future of, just the future of the league, a new team, an exciting team, and something that, like you said, I can see LeBron having some hand in that eventually as well. So I think that is a necessary step forward for the NBA.
Yeah. And even recent history, some of the most recent expansion teams. I mean, okay, the Charlotte Hornets haven't been overly successful, but at least they've had a couple playoff runs. They got LaMelo Ball. Hopefully they'll be a little bit exciting, be able to build around him. But before that was the Raptor. Well, the Hornets were the Bobcats. The Bobcats, forget that. Toronto and the Toronto Raptors and now Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, both of those franchises. Toronto won a championship in the last couple of years with Kawhi Leonard. The Grizzlies were a perennial playoff team in the last decade. Up-and-coming team last season as well. You already alluded to the Orlando Magic making a couple of finals runs. Miami Heat has won a couple championships, made the playoffs in their third or fourth season. Minnesota Timberwolves, probably the least successful of any of those teams, but still have had a few playoff runs. Have seen a conference finals with Kevin Garnett back in the day. I feel like I'm forgetting one of those expansion teams, but for the most part, I mean, expansion teams have done pretty well. So we'll see what happens. The biggest rumor, though, that I think you and I are really excited to talk about is the rumors that the NBA is going to change the minimum age requirement for entry into the NBA draft from 19 years old to 18 years old. There's no timeline on when that could happen. I haven't really checked on when the next CBA is up. I think it's going to be in the next year or two. But Montana, first question, is this the right move for the NBA?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think this is the right move because I think we are going to see two things happen. One, we are going to see so many amazing, talented, college basketball players that we never even get to see. We won't get to see them. We won't even get to see some of the best players play in college. And I think that is one of the most exciting things as a basketball fan is seeing a player in college and then in the NBA. That's exciting to see that happen. That transition is exciting to see. We'll see a lot less of that. A second thing I think we'll see is a lot of players that are just underdeveloped and are not ready for the way the league is now from high school to pro. I think we'll see a lot of players that end up in the G League and that end up just being bounced. And it's not because they're not talented, it's just because there's so many talented players and so many players are going to try to make it into the league at, straight out of high school. I just think that's going to be tricky. It's worked. We've seen some absolutely just phenomenal legends, one being LeBron James, one of the best, if not some people think the best player of all time, come straight out of high school. But I want to say right now that we're not going to see another LeBron James ever. We're never going to see another player that's exactly like him. So him having that much success that fast, I really don't think is going to be copied, especially not by his son.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think I'm conflicted on this because on one hand, from I don't want to say human rights standpoint, but a right to work standpoint, right? All the other leagues, I'm not sure what the rule is on football, but I don't know of anyone that would take the chance in drafting a freshman or a high school player in football. But I think if an NFL really wanted an NFL team really wanted to, they could. From an NBA perspective, it's happened before. We'll get into a list of guys that have been successful. We'll probably even get into a list of guys that haven't been successful. But I think that guys should have the right to be drafted and enter the NBA at age 18. I think they should have the right to do that and the right to work and all that good stuff. Have that opportunity, not be, have some sort of age restriction. The age restriction was to put in, mostly pushed by David Stern years back to kind of help a lot of these high school guys, because high school guys were coming out in bunches. And a lot of these guys probably made a mistake in coming out and instead not going to college first. But, there's other guys like LeBron James. Thank you, Jay. We have the rule. You have to be 3 years out of high school in the NFL to be drafted. Thank you, Jay. There's one-offs that are super successful. We'll get into them, but there's a lot of guys that have declared for the draft and not even got chosen out of high school, or they're chosen in the second round and they're cut and after a year. First round guys flame out, things of that nature. We can probably have a show full of guys that didn't make it straight out of high school instead of going to college, but that's neither here nor there. So from one standpoint, I think that you need to have the rule at 18, give everybody an opportunity. If a guy's ready, and let the NBA GMs make that decision. It's their jobs that are on the line. Now, from a talent standpoint and for a player interest, other than being able to have the opportunity to be drafted, this is where I think it would benefit these guys to go to college for 1 year or be 1 year removed from high school. The talent level is so much different. Preparation for the game is so much different. These are men in the league, right? Instead of these boys coming from high school. Granted, you have your LeBrons of the world, things of that nature that can hack it in an NBA straight out of high school. But a lot of these guys, especially with the AAU game, a lot of it's just street ball. There's no structure. Now, granted, in the NBA, there's a little bit of that too. There's a lot of ISO ball. A lot of coaches are going like Steve Kerr, you kind of free balling, if you will, right? I think it benefits those guys to go to college, especially if they're playing for one of the higher tier programs, and to get some sort of experience under a good head coach, get some good coaching, and get some sort of practice structure, learn some good habits. I think guys benefit from going to school for a year or two. Some guys think that they're ready and they're really not. Like, a guy that's in the news for the wrong reasons, Amoni Bates, kid that was supposed to be the next big thing out of high school, right? We saw him go to college and everybody thought, okay, this guy's going to be the number one pick. And he was terrible at Memphis. He was so bad at Memphis that he left the team and decided to transfer to like a smaller mid-major school. And now he's got himself in some legal trouble. But here's a guy that's hyped up and couldn't even hack it at the college level. Imagine if he would have went to the NBA and somebody would have picked him up. He'd be out of the NBA for a year. Yeah, okay, he'd have a couple million in his pocket, if that, but he'd flame out. So I don't know. I like I said, I'm conflicted from a right to work, from a rules perspective. I think they should be able to be drafted at age 18. From a player readiness standpoint, from a quality of the game standpoint, I think they should wait a year or two.
And I agree. I do agree that they should have the right to be able to. And I think that we would see some of those really talented players make it work. But I just think we'd see so many more that just could not play at that level. And they'd be bounced around and we wouldn't ever actually see them on a primetime NBA court. And we wouldn't see that. So I just think it's tricky. I think you can go both ways. There's definitely pros and cons of both approaches. The one thing I will say about making money is as an athlete, it is actually it's possible to make money in college now more widespread and actually legally, like you can do it now. You won't get, in trouble. So I think that as that grows and as we see that grow, I would love to see some of these players that are talented and have that talent to go to the NBA decide to go to college because you can still make that money and also build up your skills in college before you make that jump. Because that jump from college to NBA, we've seen some amazing college players that fall off when they get to the NBA. High school, I just think that would be even more. You got all these talented high school players, but it's definitely not, a Wednesday evening, in a high school gym once you get to the NBA. So I just think it's a big change, and we'd see some be successful. We'd see so many more that would never have the chance to actually
Yeah.
get to that level and give
And,
them the right shot.
and those guys can fall off after being in school for 4 years too. I mean, look
Yes.
at Christian Laettner, arguably one of the top college basketball players in history. I mean, he had some good seasons in the NBA, made one All-Star team, but he was nothing in the NBA compared to what he was in college. So I mean, it can happen either way. I like your point on the being able to make money in college, the whole NIL rule. I think here's what if the NBA is going to lower the age to 18 as far as minimum draft entry, however you want to word it. I think they do it. They move it to 18, but because you're able to make money and make money off your likeness and NCAA and what have you, I think if a player declares for the draft out of high school and he doesn't get drafted, I think you have to give him the right to be able to go to college. Then you have to be able to, because I mean the quote unquote amateur status. Well, if you're making money in college anyway, I mean, what's the difference? Let them have that college as a fallback, or the G League is another fallback or something. But I think you allow them to go to college so that way, okay, maybe I wasn't as ready as I thought, or maybe the NBA GMs didn't think I was ready. They didn't pick me in the first 60 picks. So, okay, I need a fallback plan. And maybe it's the best thing that happens to them. But I think that's one possible solution. But lower it to 18, leave it up to the NBA GMs. It's their jobs on the line. And, we'll go from there. But yeah, the Bronny rule. And you know what? That's a good point. I mean, I don't know what the timing is to lower this age limit, but let's say it happened next year. What do you think, Montana? What do you think Bronny would do? You think he'd go to Ohio State? You think he'd go to college, or you think he'd go straight to the NBA?
I really feel like it depends on how his senior season goes. I think if he has this breakout season, and there's been some of the, those traveling games and some of that ball, and we've seen some highlights of him, and he looks good. He looks the best that he's looked. I definitely think
Does
he
look
looks
better.
the best he's looked. I will say this is a side note. I think his younger brother looks like he's going to be
I
the
was
real
just
deal.
about to say, Bryce looks like he's going to be,
Bryce
he's
is going to
coming.
be something else. Yeah, Bryce has so much time left in high school. Not so much, but he's on the early end of high school. So I
think
think
he's a sophomore,
Bronny.
yeah.
So yeah, he's got time, but I do think Bronny would at least play one season out of college. And obviously we've seen that Ohio State picture circulate straight from his social media page. I'm sure he's been in the talks with other schools, and we'll see more of those posts, as time goes by. But I do think Bronny would potentially opt for the college route, at least for one season. We won't see him more than one season, but we'd maybe see him one season. But if he has a really solid season and he looks just fantastic, and I think if he gets to that level, I think LeBron will also be pretty honest with him. I'm not saying LeBron's going to make that decision for him, but I think if LeBron thinks that he needs that college, he'll encourage him to do that. So I think it'll depend on where LeBron is at with all of this, how Bronny's high school season goes, and just overall, I think that it's kind of an unknown, but I see him picking the college route, at least for a season.
Well, especially when his dad just inked that extension with the Lakers. I think he's under contract for at least another year or two. I don't know if there's an opt-out in that 2-year extension, but we'll see. We'll see. It should be very interesting. Well, I mean, speaking of these high school players, I mean, you mentioned LeBron, right? What are some of the other more successful prep to pro players? I
Mhm.
mean, LeBron's one. Another one that comes to mind is Kobe Bryant. What are some of the ones that come to mind to you? The success stories of guys that went straight to the NBA from high school.
I would say so. Yeah, Kobe Bryant obviously is up there. Arguably, I would put, if we're not ranking them, but if we were, I'd put
No, we're
Kobe
not
even
ranking
a
them.
little bit above LeBron, just because Kobe got in and turned that Lakers organization around. Obviously, he had help with Shaq, but that was a huge, huge, huge story and a huge start to that dynasty. Dwight Howard, straight out of high school, I would say that he, in my opinion, is a super notable name. I don't even know if people always realize that he was straight out of high school, but he came in and was a force right away, and
Big
he
guy,
made
yeah.
that Orlando Magic team special, and stuck around his whole time in Orlando. They were a pretty talented group. He got in and kind of went in the mix right away. So when I think of really successful stories. That's Dwight Howard's one that comes to mind for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Garnett for me is another one. Moses Malone taking it way back. I think he was one of the ones, and there was a gap between Moses Malone and Kevin Garnett of guys, going from high school to pros. Bring Smo just mentioned Jermaine O'Neal. Jermaine O'Neal, multi-time All-Star, All-NBA with the Pacers. Tracy McGrady, another great one. Sean Kemp, although I think he went to community college for like a half a year or something like that, but we'll throw him in there. I mean, other solid players, Al Harrington, Darrell Wright, guys of that nature. But for all those guys, you have a Robert Swift, you have a Sebastian Telfair, you have a Corleone Young, you have, there's a lot of guys. So we'll see. It should be pretty interesting when the NBA, if and when the NBA makes this change that they're rumored to change as far as lowering the age limit to 18. But we'll see. We'll see. Well, we're not lowering any age limits here to play everybody's favorite game. It's time for another exciting rendition of NBA Player Or. For those of you following us for the first time here on Well Beyond the Arc, we'll give you a little rundown on how the game's played. Every week, I come up with 5 names, and Montana has to tell me whether or not those names, those people that I'm mentioning, are current or former NBA players or someone from another profession. If Montana gets a question right, you will hear this sound. Victory! Thank you, Johnny Drama. And if Montana gets it incorrect, you will hear this sound. All right. Rough outing last time out, Montana, but the time before that, 5 for 5. So I know you're looking to get on track, right?
Absolutely. What was I last time, by the way? Do you remember what my score was?
I think you were 2 of 5. You're 55 of 80 running.
Ooh.
So still more up than down, but I think we can do a little better than 2 out of 5 this week. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I don't know what it is quite yet, so once I hear that, I might feel worse, but I feel good. I feel ready for a 5 for 5. I got it.
Okay. Well, this time I decided to dig into some of the listener suggestions. No, it's not a NBA player or a city in China, but this one is NBA player or famous comedian.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm going to put famous in air quotes. But these guys are technically famous comedians.
Okay. So not the big names probably. Probably won't hear any of the ones I'm thinking of right now.
You're not going to hear Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, those guys, Jerry Seinfeld, Robin Williams, those guys. No, probably no. They will. I will tell you that's your only hint for now. Those guys are not included in today's game. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hop right to it. First player, not player, NBA player but first guy. The name is Anthony Parker. Anthony Parker.
I'm gonna go without really knowing. I'm gonna say that was a slip up and it's an NBA player.
Victory! My gift to you, yes, Anthony Parker, definitely an NBA player. He's also the brother of WNBA star Candace Parker. Anthony Parker played in the NBA different stints from 1997 to 2012, most notably with the Toronto Raptors and Cleveland Cavaliers, a teammate of LeBron James as well in Cleveland, averaged 9.1 points per game in 494 games. All right, well, I gave you one. Let's see if you get that to a 5 for 5. Name number 2. Is this an NBA player or famous comedian? The name is Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright.
I'm gonna go with comedian.
Victory! That would be a good move, sir. Stephen Wright. I saw his picture when I Googled him today. You look familiar, but I don't remember his work. But he's basically known for his distinctly lethargic voice and slow deadpan delivery. Actually appeared in Reservoir Dogs and NBC's TV show Mad About You. Go figure. All right, name number 3. Is this name the name of an NBA player or famous comedian? The name is Theo Ratliff. Theo Ratliff.
Oh my gosh, this one's a little tricky. I could see it going both ways. But I'm going to go with NBA player.
Victory!
That was a good choice, sir. Theo Ratliff played in the NBA from 1995 to 2011. Led the NBA in block shots in 3 different seasons. Played with 9 teams, most notably with the Detroit Pistons, Philadelphia 76ers, and Atlanta Hawks. 7.2 points per game, 2.4 blocks per game in 810 career games. Montana, you're 3 for 3. Let's keep it continue, as Sammy Sosa once said. Name number 3. Is this the name of an NBA player or famous comedian? The name is Sam Kinison. Sam Kinison.
I'm going to go with comedian.
Victory!
Oh, here we go. Sam Kinison, definitely a famous comedian. He's known best for his screaming comedic rants. Also appeared in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, one of my favorite all-time movies. And that's all I have to say about that.
Whew, all right.
4 for 4. All right, everybody's on the edge of their seats, Montana. Let's go. The 5th and final name, Montana. Is this the name of an NBA player or famous comedian? The name is Lucius Harris. Lucius Harris.
NBA player.
Flawless victory.
For the second time in his last 3 outings, Montana has gone 5 for 5. And you were all here to witness it. Montana, how do you feel?
I feel good.
Take a breath.
I feel good. I was really feeling like if I didn't get that 5 for 5, ooh. Getting to 4 is almost worse than missing all of them because I'm so close. But hey, I'm feeling good. I think from now on it's only 5 for 5s each time. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, hey, that's something to shoot for. You're now up to 60 out of 85. You're 12 of your last 15, and those are all the stats I'm going to share right now. But before we go on, have some more fun, let's hold briefly for a word from the Yankee and the Brit.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay from Yankee and the Brit telling you to come over and check out our shows. The Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk, Well Beyond the Arc, the Markout Podcast, Flagrant and Foul, Real Talk with Jay, and MMA Underground Weekly at YouTube.com/The Yankee and the Brit. Deuces.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, everyone, make sure to check them out. All right. Well, Montana's still coming down off his high from the 5 for 5 he just got here, an NBA player. But we're going to go ahead and do some rankings. With the NBA season around the corner, training camps opening here in just a couple of weeks here, all the major, I guess, media outlets start ranking guys. Top 100 players. Sports Illustrated has their top teams, top players. Everybody has a methodology to how they're ranking players. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to rank our top 3 players at each of the traditional 5 positions. And yes, I know in some cases there's not positionless basketball, but we're going to rank our top 3 centers, power forwards, small forwards, shooting guards, and point guards. Some of these guys are interchangeable. We'll do the best that we can. I'm pretty sure we're going to forget somebody, but should be pretty interesting. But Montana, let's start with the big men. Reigning MVP Nikola Jokic has to be in your top 3, but who are your top 3? You can put them 3 to 1 or in no particular order, but who are the 3 names that you put in your top 3?
So going 3 to 1, I've got Bam Adebayo as my 3. I think that he is incredible talent, and that Miami team should be scary. Just with him, I think that they're a contending team just with a player like that. So he's my 3. I've got Nikola Jokic as 2. I could go on and on about how unimpressed I am with him sometimes, but that's just probably because he's beaten my Lakers one too many times. So he's my number 2, and super talented, one of the best. And then I've got Embiid as my number 1 big man. I think he was robbed the MVP trophy. I think that he is the best center and will be the best center going forward for the next few seasons. He's my number one, and it's not very close. The space between him and Jokic, I think, is getting bigger as we go. So he's my number one.
Wow. Okay. Well, spoiler alert, you and I have the same top three, but we have them ranked a little bit differently. So, like you, I have Bam Adebayo ranked number 3. He's going to be the defensive linchpin for the Miami Heat. You know, you hit the head on the hit the head. Forget it. I'm just going to keep going. We'll put that in the blooper reel when we finally make one. Number 2, I have Joel Embiid. As badly as I want to put Joel Embiid number 1 for the same reasons you have him at number 1. He hasn't had the postseason success. He did win a scoring title, first big man to do it since Shaq, I believe. I'm a big fan of Joel Embiid, if you will, but I got to put him at number 2 because Nikola Jokic is a reigning 2-time MVP that can do it all. Score, rebound, pass, shoot. From an offensive standpoint, other than the passing, Joel Embiid's right there with him. I think Joel Embiid has a better offensive package as far as talent goes. But you know, the passing from Jokic, I think, and his success has been trumps Joel Embiid's defensive skill just by a little bit. But we have the same top 3. Other names. What are some of the other names that just missed the cut for you?
Well, I think one for me that might not be, other people might not agree, but I've got Miles Turner on there. I've got him being a pretty big name that's on there. I do have Rudy Gobert on my list of maybe he can get up to that level. Maybe he will play at a top 3 level. I don't think he will, but maybe that new change of scenery will boost him and give him what he needs to play closer to that top level. So, those 2 guys for me, I think are in the mix for sure of people that are just right above. Rudy Gobert is a little bit more of an unknown, but we know he has the skill set to be a top 3. He definitely has the skill set and brings the right stuff to be in the top 3. I just don't think he has had enough success to be solidly in there yet, but he's definitely on that list as well. So those, Jarrett Allen, I think, is a big one as well. I think he is, as we've seen him progress, we've seen him become a way better player. And I think that he is going to be a huge part of his team's success. So those are 3 names to me that are just kind of right outside that area of top 3.
I think Miles Turner is underrated. I'd put him in a top 10, I think, maybe. Domantas Sabonis is up there for me, despite the fact that I believe he now plays in Sacramento. There's Karl-Anthony Towns is technically a center, but he's going to be moving over to the 4, so that might be a discussion here in a little bit. Jarrett Allen up there defensively. Great names. All right, move over to the power forwards. Montana, your top 3.
So my third one is Anthony Davis, and this one was tricky for me because it's like Anthony Davis healthy, absolutely. So it's kind of a place where I'm putting him, believing that he's healthy, believing he's actually fully healthy. Skill-wise, talent-wise, what he means to his team-wise, he's top 3. But I don't have him above 3, and he's really just right there on that 3 spot for me. But I have Anthony Davis 3 if he's healthy. Cat, I have 2 since he moved over. I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in that position. I don't think he's going to, he was a great center. He's been great his whole career, but I think he's going to have an edge over some of those power forwards because he's moving over and because of his skill set. So he's my number 2, and then Giannis is number 1. There is no better power forward than Giannis, and I don't think there will be for at least the next 5 years. He has set the bar. He is up here. Not even just for those but NBA players, he's one of the best. So I'm jumping on board. I'm jumping on board. I think he's the real deal, and I think he is the face of that position.
Once again, we have the same top 3, but in a different order. I have Cat at number 3, Karl-Anthony Towns. Yes, he's technically a center. I think I agree. I think from an offensive standpoint, if he's able to guard the perimeter, because a lot of teams are going to go small to try to take advantage of that matchup. Karl-Anthony Towns is not known for his defense. I've seen some Timberwolves games. I don't know if he can shuffle his feet and keep up with some of these guys. Like if you play like a Kawhi or a Jason Tatum at the 4, is he going to be able to keep up with those guys? If he can and stays out of foul trouble, which Cat has proven that he hasn't been able to do so, I think he's going to have a breakout offensive season, especially with Rudy Gobert, who I swear I saw a video of him during Eurobasket hit a turnaround jump shot. It was awkward, but
Wow.
Rudy Gobert hit a jump shot. I forgot to mention it. We were talking about with the centers. Shocking, but it happened. But no, Cat, number 3 for sure on this list. I have Anthony Davis as number 2, kind of by default. I just couldn't, even despite the injuries and things of that nature, the guy's still not even 30 yet, still has an amazing skill set. When healthy, is by far, well, not by far, but undoubtedly number 2 on this list. But we have him at number 2 just because I couldn't find anybody else better. And at number 1, as Milwaukee Bucks fans say here so many times when they go into the Pfizer Forum, I have Giannis Antetokounmpo at number 1 for all the same reasons you did. So we're on the same page there. Other guys you can consider, I mean, I'm just throwing names out here. Jaren Jackson Jr., I think he led the NBA in total blocks last year. Talented young guy. No reason to mute me, Jay. Pascal Siakam's up there. John Collins of the Hawks. You can even put Draymond Green up there. I don't put him against any of the guys that we mentioned, but I mean, throwing names out there. I can't think of true power forwards other than those guys. What about you?
I would say Evan Mobley. I think he's
Good call.
I think he's going to be a solid. He's, as just a rookie, he just had a great season. I think he's one of the more consistent younger players we've seen. He had a lot of consistency show throughout his time. He had a really good season. I agree. Draymond Green, you could put him up there. He's still a player that has that skill set. I don't know if we don't see it every single game, but we'll see him show up and
he
have
wins.
a couple good
He
games.
wins.
He wins, yeah. And that goes a long way. Julius Randle, it can be a little tricky to say this, but he's pretty offensively versatile. And I think that that skill set, we saw how big it was that season, not last season, but the season before when they made the playoffs and they had a pretty good season. We saw Julius Randle really have a solid year. So I think that hopefully he'll have a better season. And then Zion Williamson.
I was just about to say Zion. Yep.
That's the big one, because I think that he is going to come back, and if he's on the court and if he's playing and if he's actually suited up, I think every time he's been on the court, the guy's a monster. He's offensively efficient. He's good on the defensive end. If he is healthy, or whatever you want to call it, if he's good, if he's ready to go, I want to see him out there. And I think that he could be a player that for me will end up, I don't even have him in my top 5, I would say, but I would say if he can show up and just attack the season and go for it right away, I would see him maybe inch into my top 5, because he, from what we have seen, I do believe he is a top 5 talent.
One other name I'm going to throw in there, and we haven't seen him on the court in an NBA game yet, is Orlando Magic rookie Paolo Banchero, 6'10". I mean, I'd technically be a power forward, but kind of like small forward skill set. So Zion at the all-you-can-eat buffet. I don't know which one, Golden Corral or another one. I don't know, but that could be it. That could be it. All right, small forwards, Montana. Now it's going to get tougher. These are going to get pretty tough. At least I thought these were the top 3 that were toughest for me. But who do you have as your top 3 small forwards?
No, this was super tricky, but I've got Kevin Durant as my 3. Kevin Durant's great. I think that Kevin Durant is going to have a great season. And I actually think if the Nets duo of him and Kyrie is going to work, it's going to work now. I think that they're in a place where they understand. You know, Kyrie was just in an interview and talked about getting swept, and he said he thought it needed to happen. So I think going forward, we're going to see a dangerous Kevin Durant. I wasn't really impressed with how he did with his, performance last season. He had some great games. I just thought that Nets team was lackluster as a whole. But I think he is definitely a top 3 talent, and he is going to give a lot of teams a problem. So he's my 3. I've got LeBron James as my 2. Obviously, Lakers, really forgettable. I still am trying to forget it completely. Season last year, really, really not great. Not even just lackluster, just awful. It was a nightmare. But LeBron was the highlight. He was the bright spot. And when he was on the court, I at least felt like against most teams we had a chance. And usually we would up until the last quarter, and then that was it. So LeBron is just a top 3 talent going into year 20 is just ridiculous. That is crazy. That is not something that you see and may not see again. So LeBron James, definitely my number 2, solidly my number 2. And then I've got Jason Tatum as my number 1. Jason Tatum is just, we saw him have one of his better seasons he's had last season, and especially in the postseason. He is electric. He is dangerous. And if you are going up against him in the postseason, you better have your best people on him, because he is going to score over about anyone, and he's going to make it happen. So Jason Tatum is a player that I believe is one of the best players of the 2010s. He makes my top 20 list of the 2010s by far. He is such a talented player, and I am not a Celtic guy in the slightest. So saying that is tricky, but I can say it without any problem because he's my number 1. And again, the gap between him and LeBron, it's hard to say that. I still think LeBron is great, but Tatum is a step above Kevin Durant and LeBron, in my opinion, as an overall player at this moment.
I think we're either copying off each other, or I don't know what's going on, but we have the same 3, but just in different orders again. For me, I have Jason Tatum at 3rd, and the gap between 3 and 2 is paper thin. Jason Tatum is going to be a player, all-decade player of the 2020s. He's still very young. Struggled a little bit in the finals, but I think he's a top 3 small forward. That's just what it is. I have Kevin Durant number 2, and again, it's barely a difference between, as far as that number 2 and 3 spot. I think Kevin Durant's still great player, great offensive player, things of that nature. I think, he's going to come out with something to prove. And number 1, for me, it's still LeBron James. I mean, he's averaged over 30 points a game, still had from a statistical standpoint, had a pretty good season. Not as far as wins go, but I think LeBron's still the small forward, and until someone knocks him off that one spot, I think it's his. So we'll see how that goes this season. He's another year older, but he might be Tom Bradying this thing for all we know. Who knows? But the names that are leaving off this list, at least for me, are just impressive here. There's Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, who are both on the same team, but technically are both small forwards. I think they interchange between shooting guard and small forward. But both of those guys are going to be coming back from injury, hoping to play the majority of the season here. Kawhi, we didn't see it all last season. DeMar DeRozan had a career year last year with the Bulls, off the list. Brandon Ingram, and the whole country got to see him finally last year during that opening round playoff series against the Phoenix Suns. But people know he can ball. Anybody else that I have mentioned that you thought should be in consideration?
Jimmy Butler is
good call.
A player that I think, and again, it's not like I wouldn't have him on my top 3, but he's close. He's right there. He's definitely a top 10. Chris Middleton, also a player.
Another good call.
Definitely close. Even a player like Mikal Bridges is up there, and I wouldn't put him right there, but it's close. Andrew Wiggins, I feel like this is maybe one of the trickiest, if not the trickiest positions, because the names we just mentioned could easily make top 10, top 5. I mean, there's so many talented players in this position.
Yeah, I think this one and the point guard are the hardest ones to rank. Shooting guard's not a walk in the park either, but all right. Speaking of shooting guards, let's hit it. Who you got?
So I've got Anthony Edwards as my number 3. Statistically speaking, of course, there are other shooting guards that you could put above him season to season, but I think what we have seen in his progression and his growth as a player, and now that they have Rudy Gobert, it's a big question mark for me still, as we've talked about. But that could be a team in the West that is a top 4, top 5 squad once they get everything figured out. I really see it. And Anthony Edwards is one of the biggest reasons for that. We will see him in the MVP talks, like seriously in the MVP talks within the next few seasons. I can see him having that season now. I can see this season being that season where he makes that leap. So Anthony Edwards is my 3 because of the skill set he brings, and I just think the growth in the period of time he's been in the league has been impressive. I've got Devin Booker as my number 2. Has been scoring 24 plus since like 2018. The guy just is a scoring machine. I think he is a player that is just ridiculous. You cannot contain him. He has shown time and time again that he can shoot the lights out and also do so many other things for the team, for the Suns. So he's my number 2. And then I've got Donovan Mitchell as my number 1. That move to Cleveland is a big reason I have him in that number one spot. I think Cleveland is going to be a team where he is going to take off. We saw how talented he was in Utah. I'm not going to say that Utah was holding him back, but I think he will be able to express his skill set more completely in Cleveland. And I think he is going to be in the MVP talks. I have him being a potential MVP winner in my little list I have in my head right now, because I think he is going to show us everything he showed us times 10. So Donovan Mitchell is my number one.
Got some slight differences this time.
I was going to
finally.
say, did we break the streak?
Yeah, we broke the streak. I'm with you on buying Anthony Edwards stock for sure. He's one of the more exciting players in the NBA. He's just going to continue to grow. He's going to have a fantastic season, I think. That being said, I actually have him as 4 and barely as 4. I think the gap for me between 3 and 4 is minimum. My number 3 pick is going to be a little bit of a homer pick for me, but I have Zach LaVine at number 3, believe it or not. He's had a good last couple years, played last season hurt and still put up 25 points a game. Great offensive player, improving slightly defensively, still athletic as all hell. But a healthy Zach LaVine, I think, is number 3 right now. Number 2, I have Donovan Mitchell for the exact same reasons you mentioned. It's going to be really interesting to see how he fits in Cleveland. And I think it changed these. Well, at least we'll get more coverage nationally, maybe. But Donovan Mitchell, definitely still a young, great talent. Number 2 shooting guard in the league for me. Number 1, I have Devin Booker. One of the more pure shooters. I think he's got to get out of his own head a little bit and not worry about mascots trying to distract him at the free throw line, like he did in Toronto last year or the year before. But that being said, most talented, I think best shooting guard in the league, I should say, Devin Booker. The names that we're leaving off here are ridiculous too. I mentioned Anthony Edwards, but neither one of us picked Bradley Beal, and he hasn't hit 30 yet. I think it's mostly because he's walling away on a bad, mediocre Washington Wizards team. Jamal Murray, I think, is up there. He's coming back from ACL surgery. Remember the 50-point playoff duel, 50-point playoff duels with Donovan Mitchell actually in the bubble. And there's also Klay Thompson, which I didn't give Klay that consideration just because he's still coming back from that injury. Still a great shooter, one of the best shooters in the league. No slights to Klay. He's definitely in the conversation, but I can't put him in the top 3 today.
No, I don't think. And for me, he's not even in my top 5. He's bumped back closer to the lower end of top 10 because of that injury. And honestly, great run in the playoffs. It was great to see him back playing in the playoffs, especially the championship. But if we're being honest, he didn't really have a super impressive postseason, and didn't have an extremely impressive season that he was back. So I think that he's still in the mix. Tyler Hero is one that I think had a great season his rookie year, did not have the best season, but he's kind of a bounce back player. I think he'll have a good Jordan Poole. I think will obviously had a great season last year. So I think that this is a position that also has a lot of depth. Oh man, well, not every take is going to be liked, and that's again still a great player, but definitely I have him not top 5, but there's a lot of good players in this position. Bradley Beal I think is going to have some success. We're just going to see a lot of players have good success I think in this position, but Zach LaVine was right there for me. He was originally my number 3, but when I thought about it, I had to put Anthony Edwards up because I just think Edwards has, his consistency and his growth has impressed me more than LaVine's seasons and then what he's done so far has. But LaVine's a great player, and he's right up there for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, switching 3 or 4 there, I wouldn't be mad at that. So, okay. All right, for me, toughest position to rank, Montana, point guard. Top 3, let's go.
This one was pretty tricky. So yeah, Chris Paul is my 3. Chris Paul has been a player that we talk about how impressive it is that LeBron has been as good as he has for this long, but Chris Paul is right up there too. He's been in the league for a minute, and he is elite. And arguably, in my opinion, he has become more elite within the last 5 years. I think that he has kind of grown. Houston was fine, not the best setup, did not work long term. But when he went to Oklahoma City, we saw him, in my opinion, evolve and show his whole skill set again. The Paul George. Oh my gosh, The Chris Paul that we saw when he first suited up when he got into the league, I think we started to see more of that than what we saw in Houston and even the Clippers. So I think that he is a player that as he has gotten older, he's aged extremely well as a player and has even gone back to what made him such a good player in the beginning. So Chris Paul is easily my 3. I've got Steph Curry as my number 2, the champ, 3-point record. Great.
Smoke's not going to be happy with you. He's not going to be happy with you.
Pass. I already used that free pass. I might be screwed now. But no, Curry's my number 2. He's just a great player, super talented. He's going to go down as the best shooter of all time. He is going to have another great season. I'm sure of it. He's not going to fall off and not have a good season. But the player that I have at number 1, in my opinion, is one of the players that is the face of the NBA or growing to be the face, and that's Luka. Luka Doncic is incredible. And I think we are going to see like we saw with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. There can be more than one face of the NBA at the same time. And I think we're going to see a Giannis and Luka face of the NBA once we kind of get past the LeBron, because LeBron is still the face of the NBA, I'd say, but Luka is incredible. And I think that Mavs team is going to make a run for the chip. If there's one team that I think I don't know who. Right now, I still have the Warriors being right up there, so I'll just say the Warriors defending that title. I think there's one team that I think could knock them out in the Western Conference. I think it's the Mavs going into this. I think that the Mavs are scary, and I think Luka's a huge reason. So Luka is my number 1, but Curry is right there. The line is super thin between 1 and 2 for me, but I've got Luka at that number 1 spot.
Okay. We're going to differ at number 3. And I just even me trying to narrow this down, the names I've left off the list, I feel dirty about, to be honest with you. We'll get into those in a second. But my number 3, I can't believe I'm saying this, but my number 3 is Trae Young. Oh. Trae Young, I'll be honest, I'm not that much of a fan of, but the dude is good. The dude, a poor man Steph Curry, if you will, as far as shooting distance, and he's trying to get to Steph Curry-like levels. You can tell he's been watching him closely, but from a scoring standpoint, from an ability to shoot and score standpoint, and from a passing standpoint, the guy's average high assists per game his first few years in the NBA. And a lot of it's, my ranking is due to, guys being hurt and things of that nature, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have Trae Young as my number 3 point guard going into this season. Number 2, I have, and I'm probably one of my favorite players in the NBA is Luka Doncic. All the reasons you said, obviously. Dude's going to be an MVP candidate for years to come. Probably going to be top 5 MVP next couple of years easily. But, the Dallas Mavericks are going to go as far as Luka Doncic goes. If, God forbid, he gets hurt, something like that, the Mavericks aren't even going to make the playoffs. I'm calling it right now. And then my number 1 is Mr. Stephen Curry. The champ is here. The champ is here. I mean, the greatest shooter of all time. I got to give Curry the nod, not just because of the championships, but, best shooter of all time. He's the best point guard in the league by default until someone knocks him off. So for me, it's Steph Curry. Now, both of us had Steph Curry and Luka Doncic 1 and 2, kind of flip-flop there a little bit. But let's talk about some of the names that didn't make our lists. For me, CP3 didn't make my list. He was barely on the outside looking in. So we got Chris Paul, but there's some other names. Damian Lillard, for me, one of my favorite players in the NBA, hurt most of last season. Actually, I'm not going to say his name. I'm going to let you say it. Go ahead, Montana. Who else, point guard wise, we haven't even put on this list?
Well, this is tricky for me to say because I don't know for sure, but a player that should be on this list and should be a player that missed it just barely is Russell Westbrook. I don't know for sure, but the player that he should be, Russell Westbrook, for me, the talent that he is supposed to have and show, I think
58 minutes in. 58 minutes in, we finally talked about Russell Westbrook. All right.
I thought we were going to miss it. I definitely didn't have him on my list, but again, his talent, who he is, he should be there. Lonzo Ball is another player, obviously the injury exit last year, but Lonzo Ball has shown us that skill set that he brought into the NBA that was so criticized. He wasn't always putting up big numbers scoring wise, but his all-around ball, and especially how he can really crank it up on defense, he has shown and proved that his talent and his skill set works. And the Bulls were dangerous when he was on that, when he was healthy, when he was going. That was a scary. I thought they were going to go close to not all the way with that. How that line.
And give Lonzo Ball credit. He was his shooting was garbage during his time with the Lakers, and he got traded over to the Pelicans and fixed his shooting for him. He worked at his game. And something Ben Simmons can take some notes on. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
59 minutes in, we mentioned Ben Simmons.
Kyrie Irving, right there.
Yep.
A generational talent. I mean, the way what he can do with the basketball is ridiculous.
Yes.
I can't even dribble behind my back that well, that efficiently, let alone do everything he does. So he's a talent, but again, that's a big question mark, I'd say. But Kyrie Irving, we have to mention him because as a talent, the talent and the skill set, there's not a lot of players that can move the ball like he can.
Yeah, I'll throw LaMelo Ball in there, Darius Garland, but one of the more underrated players in the NBA, and the guy continues to be underrated his whole career, Drew Holiday, the Bucks. Finally made an all-defensive team, one of the better defensive guards, underrated offensive player, give you 20, couple steals a game, all-around player. Drew Holiday should be up there as well for me. So, well, we've any other names before we put a bow on this thing? I think we've covered most of them.
Oh, Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry. Yep. There you go.
There.
He's up there.
Kind of starting to show that age a little bit, but he's still up there for me. He's a talented. He's talented.
De'Aaron Fox, who's wailing away in Sacramento. Good player. Hopefully Kings can do something, but I'm not betting on it.
Oh, no. Yeah. Never going to bet on the Kings.
Well, we've come to a close here of another episode of Well Beyond the Arc. Thanks again for joining us, for your comments. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But this isn't the only place that you can catch us. Montana, what about your other projects you got going on?
Yeah, so I have a new show in the works. It's going to be a Lakers show. I am trying to get it started before the preseason begins. The latest it'll start is right before the regular season gets underway, but I want to get it started within the next few weeks. There's just still so many things going on that I don't want to start it, and then something huge happens, and I want to start on a note where we kind of get, a good amount of things going, and then the stuff keeps flowing like that. So within the next month, I will have the name, and I'll have that all plugged and ready to go. So just keep your eyes open and tune into the next show, because maybe by then I'll already have it set up. So Lakers show coming soon.
Yeah, I think what Montana's trying to say is he's waiting to see if Russell Westbrook's going to get traded or not now that the the Lakers have 4 or 5 point guards. Well, you can also find my work, my blog website, thesportspageblog.com. Just posted my third of 4 series blogs of the best, most disrespectful dunks, this time from 2010 to 2019. So be sure to check that out. Don't worry, there's YouTube video if you don't like reading. Also launching live trivia soon. We had a first practice run a couple weeks back. We're going to have another practice run a week from tomorrow. During the game, we'll be raffling off Amazon gift card as well. So for that, comment on the page here. Check that out. But all are invited to take part in the live sports trivia there. So hopefully you can join us there. But well, for now, we'll sign off. Like I said, Montana's waiting for that Russell Westbrook trade. But congrats again to Spain in winning Eurobasket 2022. Can't wait for training camp. Can't wait for the NBA season to start. So let's get a little bit more rest, enjoy some football, and we'll see you guys soon.